Good evening and welcome to Arizona Illustrated for Tuesday, July 10th, 2012. I'm Tony Paniagua. Local agencies are reporting a major need for foster parents. And tonight we'll hear about this topic from a foster care program director and a foster parent who was once a foster child herself. Caitlin Harrington has that interview.
Joining me in studio today is Daniela Preciado. She is a foster parent. And joining her is Sam Dyer, a foster care program supervisor with Casa de los Niños. Thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Sam, we have you both here to essentially address the issues facing the foster parent programs here in Tucson currently. Can you talk to us a little bit about what some of those issues might be?
Yeah, right now we're at a unprecedented crisis in terms of foster care, in that we don't have enough homes available for the children that we have in care. We've always had problems having enough homes for teenagers and enough homes for sibling groups to keep siblings together. But in the 17 years that I've been at CASA, I've never seen a time that we have not had homes for 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, and we're having to send them out of county to go to find some place to sleep for the night.
And we talked prior to this interview, sending the foster children out of county does cause another issue. Is that correct?
Yes, it does. The number one predictor of kids being returned back to their biological parents after they've been removed is visitation. And so if kids are being placed in Phoenix or further, the ability to get them back for visits on a regular basis is obviously complicated. And so if they're not here for visits as much, and that's the number one predictor, it's going to make it more difficult to get kids back in with their parents.
Daniela, you've been involved with the foster care program as a parent for the past 5 or so years. Can you talk to us about how many children you're currently housing?
I'm currently housing 5 foster, and I have 2 bio, so it's a big household. We have 7.
And previous to this interview, we were talking about some of the issues that you as a foster parent probably noticed a little bit more than the actual programs as far as budgeting. And can you talk to us about how that's been impacted in the last few years?
It's been impacted hugely. I mean, we have the big economy thing going on, you know. A lot of people have hours cut. And when you're a foster parent, there isn't much income, you know, to come in from it. And on top of that, there was a 40% cut. And I believe that's when everybody started noticing a lot of foster parents disappearing, which we can't blame, you know. But at the same time, it's very rewarding to give a child a home and just make do with what you have. But that's, you know, the main issue, that there has been budget cuts with the state, so.
We talked more specifically as far as taking the foster kids on vacations, their clothing allowances. How have those been affected?
Those have been affected hugely because there is no more vacation money. That's wiped out completely. Clothing allowance has been cut in half. So when you get these children in care, they come with nothing. So you have to, you know, start from scratch, underwear, socks, etc. And when you start from scratch, you need money. So it can be very challenging for a foster parent, but it's rewarding too. So.
Sam, can you talk to me a little bit about how you plan or how you have been recruiting more foster parents for the program?
Sure. We have recently undertaken a new PSA that we've worked with 5 mayors in Pima County. So we have the mayor of Tucson, the mayor of Marana, the mayor of Oro Valley, the mayor of Sarita, and the mayor of South Tucson, all getting together to give the message that we're in a crisis for foster parents at this time, and asking their constituents to step up, and if they feel like they have a place in their home and their heart to care for kids, to contact Casa de los Niños about what it would take to be a foster parent.
And Sam, you're doing a lot of work finding specific areas to kind of locate these foster families and foster parents. Can you talk to us about what you're currently doing in Sarita, as well as what are some of the challenges that these foster parents have to face, and what kind of lessons they have to take and classes they have to take to become a foster parent?
Certainly. The campaign we have now in Sarita, we're working at a multifaceted way to commit people from many different levels. And we're working with the school district in Sarita and we're working with the mayor's office, and we're working with Rancho Cerrito to get the message out and make sure that people understand that we have children from all over Pima County that need places to be. Some of the challenges of getting that done is it takes anywhere from 3 months to 6 months to get somebody licensed. And so if we have a crisis today, when we're recruiting new homes, really what we're doing is we're looking to help solve this problem 6 months from now. And so we still have 6 months in the middle that we have to work with. And so what we do with that is we work on making sure that we do a retention program for our current foster homes so that we can keep them in and satisfied and supported at a time that many of them are not feeling very supported by the system.
Daniela, as a previous foster child and as a current foster parent, can you, if you had words of wisdom to give to our audience on someone who may think about taking in a child but hasn't done so yet, what would you say to them?
The foster parents that I had that made an impact on me, and I am the person who I am now, they had raised 4 children. They were all done. And they decided, okay, well, let's do it again. Let's open up our heart. And that's exactly what they did. And, a lot of parents that already have grown children and do this, you already have the experience. If you're a stay-at-home mom and you have, a couple of little ones, bring home some playmates. There isn't any other way to put it. It's just, if you have it in your heart to open up your home, if some people are already doing it, if you're babysitting a kid for a friend or something like that, well, hey, you've already started the first steps. Why not bring in a kid from the street,
Sam and Danielle, I want to thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Tucson Medical Center is working on a new multi-million-dollar orthopedic and surgical tower that is scheduled to open in the spring of next year. Andrea Kelly has more information about the project in this interview with a doctor and an administrator from TMC.
Joining us in the studio now is Linda Wajdowicz, the Chief Operations Officer for Tucson Medical Center, and Douglas Lowell, the Chief of Surgery. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're here to talk about the expansion of Tucson Medical Center. Linda, can you tell us what's happening? There's a 4-story building going up. I know it's a $110 million expansion. What is it?
It's big. It's a big building, especially it's a tall building for those of us at TMC. It's 220,000 square feet. It's quite large. And it is going to be the new home for all of our surgical services.
And what does that mean for the rest of the facility? Are people going to be moving over, or is this something brand new?
Well, we're busy right now orchestrating what that move is going to look like, and it's in the orchestra theme. It's almost playing out like a symphony. There's different times need to elapse before the next thing happens, and we're planning it right now. And what will happen is a portion of our inpatients that are in the hospital right now will move, and all of our surgical services. So we have 28 operating rooms right now, and they're all going to move over.
Okay. And what does that mean for doctors? What will change for you in this new facility?
Well, doctors always like to have the newest and best facilities they can to take care of their patients, and the patients understand that. So we're looking forward to having new operating rooms, which are larger, have modern amenities, including much of the equipment suspended from the ceiling to allow for easy access and safety improvements. Basically, we will all do the same operations we've been doing, but we'll have a new place to do it, which is going to be very much nicer.
In addition to hanging things from the ceiling, are there new kinds of technology in the rooms for you to use?
Yes, there are. The rooms are going to be so-called integrated rooms, which have a lot of electronic capabilities to be able to display information and pictures, somewhat like your studio here, on the walls. And this is something that modern surgical techniques sometimes depend on heavily. Additionally, there's going to be a room or two, which is a so-called hybrid operating room, in which cardiovascular procedures that involve techniques that really come from the cath lab and have been joined to cardiac surgery procedures can be done.
And what will patients experience that's different? You know, maybe they've been to TMC to see a family member or themselves to have treatment, surgery. What's new for them in the new facility?
They will see as they come in and are prepared for surgery, and after they leave, if they're an outpatient, or after they're done with their operation and go to a room, they'll see a different picture, a new building with beautiful open areas where they're met and prepared for surgery, and they'll see as they go into the operating room new facilities and in a sense, more modern areas for them to be taken care of. The TMC operating rooms are very well equipped as they are, and they've done a tremendous amount of work for the community over the course of my lifetime. I remember them, but they're getting older, so I think TMC's done a great job to commit to updating that facility.
And Linda, I know TMC has been known for a while as the largest single-story hospital in the country. So you're giving up that moniker for this new expansion. What does that mean?
Well, we are. It's something that, you know, a lot of us quote a lot of times when we're describing this hospital to people from out of town or at conferences or something. So we're losing that ability to do that, but yeah, we're gaining a lot. It's a fun little factoid that we're going to lose, but you know, if I could just kind of piggyback onto Dr. Lowell's comments around the patient's experience, they certainly will view this whole new facility. But what we're really committed to is it's not just about the building. And we're very committed to, while we're constructing the physical space, that we're reconstructing processes too. So I do believe that patients' experiences will be much more fluid, and they're going to be much more user-friendly than they have been in the past. And our facility has been, due to its age, it's been somewhat of an obstruction for us to be able to do that. So now we're taking what the facility can offer us, and we're redesigning process around that. So it'll be nice for patients to go there.
And that's even reflected in the way this is being built, correct? Doctors and operations people work together to figure out what the hospital needs.
Yes, I believe so. I hope you would agree with that. I feel that we've done a fairly good job of having physicians be very interactive with administration in this process. They've been very contributory to the design. I don't think there's a surgeon that we haven't tapped around this, and we have a very large group of a steering group type of physicians that have really been very participatory in making the design.
Dr. Lowell, would you agree?
I do, and I've been involved in this. The process improvement groups are interesting and a new piece of TMC Department of Surgery in general. So it's a work in progress, and I look forward to the result.
Great. And when is the facility expected to open? When are the first patients going to see those rooms and be in those operation rooms?
April of 2013.
Okay. And is it a piecemeal opening, one floor at a time, or all at once?
You know, we're still writing that part of the symphony. I would expect if we have to stage it, which we might, it will be within a very short time frame. I'm thinking, a few weeks. It certainly wouldn't be over the year, anything like that.
So less than a year away.
Less than a year away.
Great. Well, thank you both for joining us to talk about the expansion of Tucson Medical Center.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
The greenhouse at Tucson Botanical Gardens may not be the first thing to come to mind when you think of a possible respite from the heat. However, you might be surprised that the temperature inside is often cooler than our summer highs and offers an opportunity to look at some unique flowering plants. Luis Carrion takes us on a tour.
Actually, it's cool in here. You hear about the greenhouse effect, making things warm. In the summertime, we keep it cooled with swamp coolers, just to keep the plants at a more comfortable level. I'm Michael Chamberlain. I'm the Director of Horticulture here at the Tucson Botanical Gardens. And this is the tropical greenhouse, which is home to orchids, bromeliads, and various tropical plants and flowers. If this was not cooled by any system at all, it would just get too hot for any plants to be grown in here. Any of these tropical plants would get overheated. They are protected from the hot, dry wind that we receive. They're protected from strong rain or climate effects that would not be right for tropical plants. And the walls of the greenhouse hold in the moisture. Here we have several orchids in bloom, and these are being grown much the way that they would be growing in the wild. This orchid is actually mounted on a piece of cork bark, and it's just hanging there. It has almost no soil on it, and the roots are just hanging out there. It looks pretty strange, but that's the way they actually grow. Now, to water this, we have to take a hose and kind of splash water on it. So this is not the way that many people would like to grow them indoors, but in a greenhouse, this is the ideal way that you can grow them. One of the other interesting aspects about orchids is that you can hybridize two very different orchids to create a new plant. And most of the commercial orchids you'll find for sale have been intensively bred to have larger flowers, longer lasting flowers, or even scented flowers. And those are features that have been bred into them. But one of the best known aspects of orchids are their elaborate flowers. And those are tied with very specialized pollination mechanisms. Sometimes these flowers will look or smell like just a particular insect, and that particular insect is the one that comes and pollinates them. This is a vining orchid. It's not in flower, but this orchid is actually of more interest for its beans. This is the vanilla orchid, and this is a vanilla bean. It's starting to ripen, and this is where the natural vanilla flavoring comes from. It's from the vanilla bean. So getting your vanilla actually is a lot more exotic than many people might realize. It comes from an orchid, from a tropical orchid, and it comes from the fruit or bean of that orchid. These little orchids are almost succulent plants. These will grow on branches like other epiphytic orchids, but these probably come from areas that receive rather little rain, so they have the thick, fleshy leaves that you would see on succulent plants. And technically, you really could call these succulents. They really do have the same water storage and growth habits of succulent plants. Here we have a number of bromeliads. Many of them are silvery, covered with tiny silver scales. This helps them absorb water that falls as rain. This is a dangling bromeliad. You can see how the leaves twist around, and that would help it grasp onto branches. They have very few roots, so they really depend on absorbing water through their leaves. These are actually related to the pineapple plant. They're in the pineapple family. They're not related to orchids. They're just one of the community of plants that will grow perched up on tropical trees. This is a controlled environment where we create an alternative to the desert environment so that we can grow a lot of plants that people would otherwise not see. Outside of the greenhouse, we grow plants that are adapted to being outdoors in Arizona. But in here, we can show off the orchids, the bromeliads, and other plants that are just very fun and interesting. And those are plants that people would like to see at a botanical garden. They want to see a little slice of the plant kingdom.
The City of Tucson is holding public open houses to address the Avra Valley Habitat Conservation Plan, which is scheduled to eventually be evaluated and approved by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Avra Valley is northwest of the city, and tonight we are joined by Fernando Molina to tell us more about what's going on. Molina is with the Tucson Water Department. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me here, Tony.
So what is the connection between the City of Tucson and Avra Valley?
Well, in the 1970s, Tucson Water began to purchase a lot of farmland out in the Avra Valley with the intent of, number one, conserving the water supply from agricultural use and saving it for future uses. And we're approaching the future, I guess. So we have about 22,000 acres of land in the Avra Valley, west of Tucson, that we have to manage. So that's where our role with Avra Valley comes in.
And now you're working on an Avra Valley Habitat Conservation Plan. What is that all about?
Well, a lot of these lands have vulnerable species located on them. So we have to work within the guidelines of the Endangered Species Act and the National Environmental Policy Act. So basically, because with these two federal requirements, it's basically an assessment that looks at what are the endangered species that we find out there, whether they be plant or animal. And what we have to do is come up with a plan that will allow us to manage these lands so that we can basically get a permit for incidental taking of any of these species as we move forward.
So what do you think the Tucson Water Department might eventually do on these 22,000 acres or so out there?
Well, we have several objectives. Number one, we have to manage it. So we have 22,000 acres that we still have to manage. But number two, I think we'll see that perhaps that land, as it does today, play an important role in our water supply with our recharge and recovery projects out there. So there's also, in the future, additional water development projects that could be out there. But from an economic development perspective, there could be opportunities to have some of the land available for other uses. More recently, what we're seeing is installation of solar facilities on lands that are owned by Tucson Water.
Okay, and then it goes to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and then they look at it and
correct. The Fish and Wildlife Service is the agency that oversees the environmental assessment programs through the Endangered Species Act for Tucson Water in this area here. So we'll be working with them. Secondarily, we also have the opportunity, once we have this as a tool, to manage into the future. So any new opportunities that come along, we'll be looking at this as a document for guidance. And we'll also work in cooperation with the Pima County and the Sonoran Desert Conservation Plan. And I understand that the town of Marana is also doing a habitat conservation plan as well.
All right, so one of the public meetings is tonight at Picture Rocks, and then the other one's tomorrow night at Robles Ranch Community Center.
Correct.
What happens at these meetings? Well,
at these meetings tonight and tomorrow night, we will have a brief presentation by the Fish and Wildlife Service, so they'll present a little bit of information on their part. And then with Tucson Water staff, we'll be presenting some information regarding the plan itself. So there'll be opportunity to receive a lot of this information, learn a little bit more about what this plan is about, but it's also an opportunity to provide more input.
And what is the time length of this plan? Any idea on when you hope to have this accomplished? The timeline? Or?
The timeline for completion of the plan. This is actually the last stage of the plan, so we're hoping that this will result in the final plan being reviewed and approved.
And if somebody can't make the meeting tonight or tomorrow night, what can they do? Well,
there's plenty of opportunities. They could always call Tucson Water at 791-4331 and ask to speak with somebody about submitting comments. You can also go online and submit comments through the Tucson Water website. So there are plenty of opportunities if folks can't attend the meetings to provide comment.
Okay, Fernando Molina from the Tucson Water Department about Averill Valley Habitat Conservation Plan. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me here, Tony.
Now we go from Averill Valley to Altar Valley, where various members of the community and different agencies have created the Altar Valley Conservation Alliance. The goal is to try to protect the land for future generations while allowing ranchers and others to continue to make a living on their properties. Driving on dirt roads in the Sonoran Desert may seem like an innocuous activity in this vast, dry, and isolated region. But close observers say these man-made paths for easier travel can be extremely tough on the environment. They change the natural patterns of the water flow, contribute to soil erosion, and destroy native plants.
This is the first place that the Alliance worked on these one-rock dams.
But residents like Mary Miller and Tom Sheridan are trying to make a positive difference in their part of the desert southwest of Tucson. They live in the Altar Valley watershed, an area of about 600,000 acres with wide open spaces and a sparse human population. Much of the landscape looks pretty much as it has for hundreds of years.
People recreate out here, families who've hunted in this area for generations. You get people who come out here to bird, people who come out here to horseback ride, and it's also the largest unfragmented, undeveloped valley in southern Arizona.
It's very important to many of us because we live and work here. Many of us have ranched in this valley for generations. Our family came to the valley in 1945, for example, and my kids are the fourth generation. And we think that's pretty special. And we have other neighbors who have those kinds of situations too.
So a group of different people with divergent ideas but the common desire to protect the land decided to join forces in 1995, at a time when Tucson's rampant growth appeared to be encroaching quickly. They formed the Altar Valley Conservation Alliance, which became a formal nonprofit organization in 2000. Volunteers are working in different areas, such as bringing fires back into the landscape as a management tool.
These structures are one of the first things we need to look at, you know.
Tom Sheridan is a professor of anthropology at the University of Arizona who moved to the valley in the 1980s.
I've really gotten involved in the last 15 years in the collaborative conservation movement, which is trying to figure out, instead of focusing on differences, what are our areas of common ground? What can we agree on?
And one of the major points is the need to help Mother Nature cope with the roads that are cutting through the valley because they create new water channels that are scarring the landscape.
And when that happens, the water is not going across the landscape as it should. It's being channeled into the road, and the force of the water becomes very concentrated. And with more water, you have more cutting ability.
And that eventually leads to soil erosion and the destruction of the grasslands which are native to this area. That begins a vicious circle which is aggravated over time.
You've lost your water, you've lost your surface protection, and so then you start to lose soil. As you lose the soil, then you can't have the grass, and it just goes round and round and round, really downstream. You lose your water, you lose your soil, you're sunk. You don't have your basic building blocks anymore. We have to hold on to the soil. Soil is so important.
And while elimination of the roads isn't a feasible goal in the majority of cases, mitigation is a different story.
The Alliance has been working for the past 6 years to heal this particular gully, and we're doing it basically one rock structure at a time. There's nothing, we don't use any other material other than rocks to slow the water down, slow the sediment down, so that as the water slows down, the sediment filters out of the water, builds up the soil, grasses and other plants can come in and they stabilize the soil even more.
The area is immense and so is the work, but members of the Alliance say the most important steps are well underway. An understanding of what's vital and necessary, the desire and dedication to make a difference, and a commitment to communication and cooperation. The Altar Valley is too valuable, they say, for anything less. You can get more news and information on our website, azpm.org. To comment on any story you saw tonight, click on it online and go to the bottom. We can also be reached via Facebook and Twitter. Coming up tomorrow night, elder abuse is a growing concern in the country. We'll give you some vital information. Also, a local chorus is getting ready for a trip to Panama and Cuba. I'm Tony Paniagua. From all of us at Arizona Public Media, have a great night.